college was something that was always expected that I would do. I'm grateful to have my parents. They never really pressured me to go to college. Although I did get a sponsorship and I decided to go. I was in a job that I could make more money if I had a bachelor's. I think I like this field of study, and so I decided that it was a no-brainer and I wanted to go to college. So with that being said, this is my experience and all of the design classes that I took at ASU in graphic design. This is how all of my design classes ended up going, and today I'm going to be ranking them all based on how much knowledge I got from it. I had worked previously as a graphic designer at a newspaper company for 2 years, and so I had experience before college. I'm an illustrator, and I always have been, honestly, from a very young age. And I wanted to go to college because it was free to me, but also because I thought I could earn a lot of money doing it. I feel like that's why a lot of people go into career paths that they do. For me, everyone was telling me how much money I would make if I had a bachelor's. And unfortunately, in 2026, it's a little bit harder to find those jobs. I decided to make this video today because I would have loved to have this video before I went to college. I did do everything online, so this is not in mind of commutes and social activities. This is merely the schooling. I won't be sharing any of my basic classes like math, science, English. I will just be sharing all of my graphic design classes, and you can decide if it was worth it. I just graduated in December of 2025. I did walk across the stage even though I did all of my schooling online. I was very, very proud of that. I did end up designing my cap. This one right here, I ended up designing this. This is my look, yeah, my logo. I basically look like I'm her. Maybe there's someone out there that wants to go and get their graphic design bachelor's or master's. This is just for this school in particular, what I learned, but I feel like it's good to know. And this is also in the span of, I think, 2023 to 2025. I started going to college before AI really started. I'm going to be sharing what the class description is from the school and what they said that the class is about, what I did in that class, and I'm going to share a ranking. I have quite a bit of classes, so hopefully this isn't too long of a video. But if you are curious, I will share at the very end of the video best class that I took and the worst class that I took. Of course, this is all my opinion. Online school is not easy. You still gotta do the work. And luckily for me, I'm very self-motivated. So this was kind of fun. I'm kind of happy that it's over because I have this and susrooms, and I have so many other things in my life now that I'm working towards and I'm doing. But whenever I started college, I really didn't have too much motivation. I didn't really have that many goals in my life, and so college for me kind of gave me some sort of purpose, so I am very happy for that opportunity. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in. This one was my very first class, Designing Life. Wow, that sounds so fancy. This course explores how students can create a life of meaning and purpose in the field of design. It was a lot of like drawing simple shapes, figuring out what kind of person you are, what's your personality type, what's your goals, what's your dreams, that sort of stuff. For me, this course kind of felt like a inspirational pep talk. I get it for all new designers out there, like maybe this is really motivational to start and continue with the program. For me, I gave this class a 1 out of 5 because I already had the motivation to go to school. Like, I'm going to school, so it didn't really feel like purposeful. Class number 2, Principles Graphic Design 1. This course will introduce first-year graphic design students to fundamental principles of graphic design. Okay, great. So this was about drawing perfect squares. I basically just put squares on top of other squares to see the lines. I put colored squares on top of other colored squares. I would say that this was a very strange class. I had never taken a graphic design class before, really. And so I was like, what are we doing? The takeaway for me is basically that it was like introductory color theory. Why were we drawing darker squares on top of lighter squares? It kind of just talked about how color can change the feeling of something, and that's kind of the main theme of this whole first year, was figuring out the feeling of a design. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to feel right. And what I mean by that just sounds really hoopty-doopty. It's like a design principle where something looks incorrect, like it looks bigger than it should be, but really they're the same size, and it's just one is colored in and one is not, and so it feels bigger. So you have to actually like physically scale it down so that they look equal. This was the beginning of learning that, and at this point I did think that this was pretty stupid, so I rigged it 1 out of 5. So my third graphic design class was Graphic Design History 2. Why was it 2? Because my advisor said to take that course, and so I took it. I should have been taking Graphic Design History 1. This course already was super confusing. Also, if you are going to college, do not listen to your advisors because they really mess me up. So if I ever go to someone for scheduling, what classes should I take, they would always give me the wrong class. So I started just figuring out for myself. It's crazy. But yeah, they literally did it, give me backwards. Like, it's so obvious to me now, but I was like, okay, I guess I need to take this one. Investigates relationships among graphic design and related disciplines. So as it kind of mentions in the title, this is a history class on graphic design, which I was kind of a nerd about, to be honest. I would say that this one was kind of my first taste into what graphic designers actually do, kind of the basics that I really wanted and I was craving to learn. So I watched a movie on Helvetica. I learned the term font is actually typeface. I learned the anatomy of letter forms. A letter form is just a single letter. I did many slide decks, basically, of these like through history, find it from the book and talk about it sort of thing. So I did that forever. And then I also made this like cute little video at the very end of my like final project, was just taking letters from like bubblegum and like turning it into like a little movie. It was very fun. Overall, I learned how to see fonts. And I also learned that I'm kind of a nerd about Helvetica. Like in general, just the movie itself was super fascinating. So I did give this one a 5 out of 5. And so obviously I took Graphic Design History 1 because I had taken the second one. Talked to another advisor and they're like, why did they make you do that? And I was like, bitch, if I knew, I don't know. Kind of the same exact course, it just was a more extended. This course surveys the development of visual design from its origins to the 20th century. So this was just basically the same thing, but I did write a paper on typefaces. It was a lot more simplified than that second course that I took first. So I kind of knew what I was doing, but it was a lot of information on typefaces. For me, this wasn't like exciting anymore, so I did give this one a 2 out of 5 because it was basically like doing what I was doing before, except it was less exciting things. So oddly enough, okay, so class number 5, this one is Principles of Graphic Design 2. Students will explore and discover largely unknown phenomena in the drawing and writing of letter forms. This class was torture to me. I created letter forms such as A, E, O, and W in sans serif, which here's a serif, here's a sans serif. It doesn't have the little whoopty-whoopties on it. I learned how to draw precise lines. And I learned that I hate that. I hate that so much. I also learned how to space letters. Yep, that's literally what I said. I learned how to space letters. My takeaway is that this was the most tedious class I've ever taken, and I learned how much I hate drawing straight lines. I gave this one a 1 out of 5. Hated it. Class number 6. This one is Design Drawing 1. Design drawing explores translation. Translation is made of a tool and its language derived from human interaction. This course remains experimental. What does that mean? This was more drawing straight lines, and I hate it. I drew circles, I drew more straight lines, I drew diagonal lines, and I learned perspectives, although this is something I've just always had. And so for me, perspective, it's like not difficult whenever you're looking at a circle and a square. Whenever you're looking at the human form, sure, that's difficult. Learning perspectives was the roundabout point of the class, and so I just didn't learn anything personally. I gave this one a 1 out of 5. Out of 1 out of 5s for this first year. And class number 7, Letterform. Students will explore and discover largely unknown font. Wait, I think I already read that. Another experimental class. Why does this sound like the same exact summary as the last one? Okay. Well, that's because it kind of is. I drew H, N, and U in different orders, and I learned how to space them. And whenever I say like I drew them, like I digitally created them in like Adobe programs, I would get marked off if it wasn't exact. It had to be exact. And so I also hated this one. Literally drew letters and digitally spaced them. I will say that like it was kind of interesting. I felt like I got something from it, but it was still kind of annoying. So I did give this one a little bit higher, a 2.5 out of 5. Because it was like, okay. Class number 8, Visual Communication 1. Yeah, big ol' summary here. The work made directly by the students will increase understanding of aesthetic, including optical phenomenon, proportion, and relationships. Yeah, this one, it kind of taught me the feeling of spacing. Kind of like I mentioned in that first class, a very, very, very introductory version. This one was way more advanced. I was putting black and white spaces next to each other. I was trying to optically kind of demonstrate how they could feel like the same size. One of the better parts about this class, I learned how to visually see similar textures in forms, kind of creating like an image out of 2 images that kind of look perfect. My professor was pretty tough about like making it perfect, which like, how are you gonna find it perfect? Again, this is before AI. Yeah, I did learn how to see things overall, like textures and colors, and I really started to understand color theory because of how different colors interact with each other up against one another. Overall, I did like this class. My teacher was pretty tough, so I do give this one a 4 out of 5. Class number 9, Communication Interaction Design Theory. This is a pretty simple summary. Theory related to a design of communication artifacts and interaction between various media environments. Okay. Yeah, I basically drew a bunch of squares and I had to demonstrate the word falling. I placed letters into shapes. I watched another movie on Helvetica and I wrote an essay about it, which I didn't mind. I sketched letter forms in serif font. This was the first time that I started to sketch page grids and I started to understand how a page works and how it's laid out. You see something every day, like a website, and you just don't really see like all of the different things and components. And so I think this class was a very good example of like how to see it. We also discussed very, very generally color theory, UX, UI design, and storyboarding. Very briefly. I personally really like storyboarding in my daily life. You can't see it up there, but I have like a whole storyboard of how I film my videos and what I'm wanting to do. It basically just is a visual explanation of what you're wanting. My key takeaway from this class, there was a whole lot going on. There's a lot of different pinpointed ideas. It was kind of all over the place, but it was a lot of really good information. I basically just got a hint of every graphic design facet that I could potentially expand upon. So I definitely give this one a 5 out of 5. It was very educational, informative. I honestly just liked this class overall. Class number 10, Typography. This class is based on further education through the research of formal problems in typography. I feel like a lot of these are copy-paste summaries. This was an interesting one. It was creating a book cover, they wanted me to visually see a spread. Basically, we would take the text of whatever it is, you know, the header, the person's author name, subheading, some description, and then like over and over and over again, we would put like boxes around the stuff, we'd move it around, we'd add color to it, we'd add black and white. It was very, very intense and repetitive. The brunt work of spacing took forever, is my summary. That's my takeaway. 1 out of 5 for this class. Class number 11, Visual Communication 2. Transition from theoretical to Transition from theoretical to applied problems emphasizes refinement of visual skills. This class, I'm getting memories like every class that I'm reading back. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember having that breakdown. I remember the hours I spent on this one. Yeah. School is basically just like working for free. This class was solely about drawing this mug. I still have it. Basically, like, I took pictures of the mug. I had to make it look like the picture demonstration. And not only that, but I had to draw it out on the computer with the pen tool in Illustrator. Yeah, that's it. My key takeaway is I learned how to draw with the pen tool in Illustrator, and that's it. And I did this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times to probably get one of the worst grades ever. It was basically to see light and dark on a glass surface, I'm assuming, but I do give this one a 3 out of 5 because I do have some really cool stuff to put on my portfolio, but it did take a lot of time. It was very strenuous and the professor was not very gracious about grading, so 3 out of 5 for this one. Class number 12, Technology for Design 1. Students will learn the basic principles of digital and web design. This one was really fascinating for me. I know that I wanted to go into graphic design. I'd never really played with any sort of coding. I'm not a coder, I'm a designer. So I really wasn't sure what web design really looked like. But this one, I kind of learned how to use the program Figma and basically UI UX design in Figma, which is user interface and user experience. I found this to be really fun, but they really just gave me a tiny little taste and I had to kind of learn on my own. That was a very recurring theme, is that the professor would give you a project and then not really teach you how to do it, and I would have to look at YouTube and figure out how to do that myself. For me personally, I went and took this information and ran with it and did my own thing. I basically took a website from the internet and I started to critique it, started to create a mood board of the website that I wanted to make, and then I developed the website in Figma. I learned a very, very small taste of HTML script and CSS script, but very, very minute, not JavaScript. And JavaScript is the animations in web design. So I really wasn't learning how to do any of that. And honestly, if I just like tried to do it now, I wouldn't know. It's not really something that really stuck with me, but Figma did. I'm very happy that I got this little taste. So this one definitely goes for 5 out of 5 for me. Yeah. Class number 13. This one was Visual Communication 3. Explores methodologies of strategic communication, development of visual systems, and information design ideation processes leading to applied projects in print and digital media. That's a mouthful right there. Oh yeah, this one. This one was kind of cool actually. I had to choose an object to make a whole design brand for. So I decided the Swatches brand, which is a really, really fancy watch. And so I created an entire booklet. This one was also kind of weird because I not only did this like other project, but I had like this like semiotics poster. I never really understood why this was important. I redid this multiple times. It was one of those classes where the professor gives you a B if you work completely like incessantly. I also took pictures of similar items and moved them around good. That's literally my notes right now. I also drew ropes. That one was for demonstrating instructions visually. That one was still kind of like, what? This class was all over the place. I really wasn't sure what I was learning and I was just trying really hard to get a good grade, and overall I give this one a 3 out of 5. Some cool stuff for my portfolio, but like what was going on? I don't know. Class number 14, Technology for Design 2. This course introduces you to more applied projects and relies on your retention of learning skills and principles from previous studios and lecture courses, blah, 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 blah. This one was interesting. I think that this one really gave me a taste for how to build a brand. I created business cards in InDesign. I formatted business cards. I created envelopes and letterheads that all had that same visual system. Basically, just created a brand. I did also draw, I think this is the one. She basically gave us 2 random letter forms and we had to combine them in some way, and that one was kind of fun. I liked doing that. So that was kind of cool. That gave it a little bit more on the points for me personally. It did teach me how to build a brand overall and where to start and where to go from there. So I do give this one a 3.5 out of 5. It was very rigorous, but I did learn something from it. Okay, are y'all sticking with me? If you want, you can take a break. No worries. I'm taking a break. Class number 15, Motion Graphics and Interactive Design. Discusses and explores theory related to the design of motion graphics and interaction through lectures and studio projects. This one was fun. I created a storyboard for animation design, and I did create an animation frame by frame. I think this was maybe one of my first introductions to animations. I might have started doing animations for susrooms by that point, but it was something that I did in Procreate. I think I wasn't really supposed to, but I did it anyways. And then I put the full animation together, so you can see that here. The main takeaway for this one was kind of creating an animation from start to finish. I had experience with this before, but it was still a fun class, so I give this one a 3.5 out of 5. Class number 16, Visual Communication 4. Comprehensive studio project with emphasis on production processes leading to multidisciplinary applied projects in print, 3D space, and digital media. There was a lot of really cool stuff, but it was more so for my portfolio. It was, again, all over the place. So she was just throwing projects at us left and right, being like, figure it out. Sometimes the professors will give you some sort of instructions, here's what to do, like step by step. Most of the time, they're just like, figure it out. The whole point of having a teacher is to teach, and so I think that was, again, one of the most frustrating parts of college was I didn't have teachers that taught at all. They just threw YouTube videos at us sometimes. So, okay. For this class in particular, I had a few mock interviews. I created resume mock-ups, and then also on the flip side, I created stamps. I designed stamps, wow. I went with a lantern theme, and this was kind of fun, honestly. Again, I was drawing it in Illustrator, which was something I really hadn't done before because it is a lot more complicated, in my opinion, to do on the computer than it is to just draw it myself. So it was another learning curve. I also created a social issues campaign from scratch, basically. I created t-shirts, a poster, and social media posts. I also started to work on my art portfolio, which was a big one for me because I really started to apply to graphic design jobs at this point. It took me many years to find one because of the job market in today, so I had already been applying to jobs at this point. But it was a way for my professor to look at my art portfolio and kind of help me make it better. So overall, this was really helpful for showcasing a really great portfolio, although it was kind of odd that it was so all over the place. It was also my very first campaign, and so that I was really happy with. This one I gave a 4 out of 5. Class number 17, Exhibit Design. I think that this might have been one of my favorite classes as opposed to the cool Figma website design. This was completely different. I was basically learning how to create 3D mockups in SketchUp. For this professor, he was very good at doing step-by-step information videos. It was very helpful. Familiarization with the processes associated with the design of exhibits, especially visual communication in 3D. This whole entire class was just to make a 3D mock-up in SketchUp, and then I create like a full brief based on this design that I did. And this one was so fun for me. I basically did a collab. I created the mock-up of what it might look like to have both Celsius being sold and a roller skate rink selling roller skates together as a pop-up. And I created that in 3D. It was really, really fun. This was definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. I loved it. And honestly, SketchUp is such a fun program. It is complicated and I did cry a lot over the first couple of tries, but overall, I really do like 3D design and maybe I'll get more into it eventually. Class number 18, Visual Communication 5. Visual communication's always been all over the place, but this one was really tough. Comprehensive studio projects with emphasis on design processes, including research, writing, critical thinking, practice, presentation, and analysis. I basically created an infographic. I created mind maps of my previous social issues project that I did a campaign for, and then I created a clock. This is where this class kind of got interesting because I didn't really understand the meaning of the clock and why the clock was suddenly not a clock anymore. At first, I really tried to make a functional clock that was a little bit stranger because she didn't want it to be a traditional clock. My idea was to move all of these triangles or shapes from one side to the other, and then depending on the side, it would be AM or PM, and then how many would be the time. And then she wanted us to combine our social issues project into a clock, and so mine was on climate change specifically from plastic, and so slowly it just didn't turn into a clock anymore. I didn't really understand what we were doing. For months and months, she did not give us a grade. The whole premise of the entire class didn't make sense, and so I literally give this one a 0 out of 5 because what were we doing? I don't know. I mean, you read the summary, so your guess is as good as mine. And at the very end, she did give me a B. And I had turned everything on time. There was no grade following that. So I don't know, but I was very mad about that grade, and I was an overachiever, as you can understand. Class number 19. This one is Advanced Interaction Design. In this course, you'll apply design principles and learn skills to transform everyday objects into powerful brand communication tools. This is one of those classes that I was waiting for. I personally would love to be a packaging graphic designer. I think it sounds really fun. This one was, it was tedious, but it was very fun. I basically took a Jello box. I broke down all of the different layers in design, like break down every single layer. That was one project, and then I had to create my own package in the same way with every single layer, and I'm talking like 20 layers. It definitely allowed me to see what all is involved in a package, what type of print, all of the information, and it was definitely something that I loved doing. Basically, I learned how to build a package from scratch, and I give this one a 5 out of 5. Class number 20, Advanced Media. Advanced exploration of digital media for communication. That's the entire summary. I basically created my own personal logo, a storyboard for my demo reel, created the demo reel, as well as creating my own personal website. I've also created susrooms.com as another website. I'm a little bit more proud of susrooms, if I'm being honest. Overall, this just kind of allowed me to take the skills of learning how to build a brand and applying it to myself, and I thought that that was kind of cool. So yeah, I give this one a 5 out of 5. And another one, class number 21, Visual Communication 6. When will it end? The visual communication classes just kept coming. Comprehensive studio projects pursued in cooperation with a public organization or a private enterprise. This class was my very last design class for my entire years of schooling. I basically created an exhibit poster that was large enough to fit in a museum. And with this, I kind of had to relearn how to build a poster because it was so large. I had to allow spacing for the person standing next to it. That was kind of a challenge. I also learned how to put animations on it. I also created a flip book for the exhibit, and then I also created a very, very extensive brief on that project and a few of my other previous projects. I personally gave this one a 1 out of 5 because the professor was very, very, very difficult. I also did I don't even know what to call this. It was like a poster it was supposed to be like a 1-word poster or something. He was very extensive about like that for grading. Anyways, this was a very stressful class. I don't know why design classes have to be graded. It's very hard to grade a design, in my opinion, because the way that someone creates something isn't really gradable. There's not a right or wrong answer. Art is art. And so I kind of got frustrated at this class. Yeah, I had to give hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of revisions just to make the bare minimum grade. So this one was very frustrating. I did give this one a 1 out of 5, even though I did learn some skills and I put them, little few of them on my portfolio. But overall, I hated this class. So we have gone through a bunch of different classes. Thank you for sticking with me. So was it worth it? All this work for free, was it worth it? So basically, looking back on all of these classes, just for my own personal conclusion, my first year was a lot of basics, which makes sense. Basically, they were talking about perspective, colors, typography. The first year was kind of all of that like bulk of information kind of learning, so I did rank a lot of classes pretty low. The second year was building on those ideas, which kind of added a little bit more complicated stuff, but mostly it was just still the basics, but just adding a few more things. That was like drawing glass, creating booklets. The third year was this idea of creating your own and kind of expressing your own design and showing up for a professional design audience. The third year was more so pointed at where I'm gonna go and potential design jobs, which I was super thankful for. I think that a lot of these classes really helped me gain momentum for things I'm interested in. From these classes, I had little tastes of a lot of things, and I think it was kind of my choice now to not stop learning, to kind of take a lot of those things and decide that I wanted to learn more. So overall, was it worth it? As you could tell, I ranked a lot of classes really low. But this wasn't because maybe the class itself was poor, but it was more so because I already knew that information. And truthfully, there was a few facets of information that I was really excited to learn about more in depth that I actually wasn't. I got one class learning about Figma, one class. And that was really the thing I was most excited about in going to graphic design school. Like, I was most excited to learn about UI UX design, and I got one class. I didn't learn how to animate in Adobe After Effects at all. I would have liked to do that. Although I did get the opportunity to do that in that one class, and I decided to do Procreate instead. So maybe that's on me. The teacher did not give us any information on how to do it. I had to just learn it myself. So I would have liked to learn how to 3D render a little bit more. I did have a taste of that in SketchUp, but I would have liked to learn Blender, so stuff like that. However, on the flip side, I did learn a lot of things. I learned how to build a brand fully, a campaign, and I got the basics on literally everything. I got a lot of starting points, like I said, Figma, Adobe Illustrator, and SketchUp. I think that overall, this degree was a very great starting point. Like I mentioned, it had a lot of ideas that were just starting. And I only mentioned my design classes that I took. I didn't mention my English, math, science, and the Mandarin class I took. But those were all also going on at the same time. Oh yeah, and I also took a Religion in America class. That was interesting. I honestly just wanted to give more insight into this degree itself. So what do you think? It was the only class that got a 0 out of 5 rating, that dang clock class. It made absolutely no sense. I honestly don't know what to think of that class, especially whenever the class didn't give us grades as we were going on. We just had to hope that we were gonna get a good grade at the end of it. But yeah, I would say my biggest disappointment that I learned in online school is that a lot of teachers don't teach. They give you a YouTube video, maybe, but all of the teachers have repeatedly given projects without the real information on how. I am very self-motivated, so I figured it out. I guess maybe that's one thing that you need when you go to college is a will to figure it out. But it was still super disappointing whenever I had the expectation of having teachers. Some of the highest ranked classes that I mentioned were stuff like building websites, animating, 3D design, etc. There was a lot of really great classes that I took, and these I ranked pretty high because they applied to my art portfolio a lot. They gave me a great starting out point, and honestly they were things I had not even thought of before. In conclusion, for me, I would say that I learned a lot from about half of the classes. Half of the classes gave me a really great starting out point. It helped me learn a lot of things that I maybe had never seen before or thought of. I learned a lot of basics, but at the same time, I kind of already knew a lot of those basics before I went into it. I feel like if you're wanting to go into a graphic design degree, you do have some level of understanding of some of those basics already. So I feel like bringing them up all the time was kind of unnecessary. This is not to say that everyone should not take these classes, as they were super educational if you did not know this information. But again, if you're going for a graphic design degree, you know you want to do it, you might already know some of these things. So take what you will from this video. I will be using my graphic design degree and hopefully finding a very, very successful job in the future. But even if not, I will be using it in susrooms as I graphically design everything that I make. I will say a lot of these things have helped me kind of grasp an understanding on how to do more for susrooms. What do you think? Leave a comment if you think that graphic design school is worth it. If you're curious to see how much I made selling my art in 2025, you can watch this video here. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video.